Set Boundaries, Find Peace by, I looked this up, this is the correct pronunciation, Nedra Glover Tawwab. Okay, so let me offer my thoughts on something, and I'd love to hear yours in the comments too, see what you think of this. What do you think of when you think of someone who sets boundaries and finds peace? I think some people fall through the cracks of this, and in the face of adversity, they might poop themselves. But generally, the rest of who I notice are better at setting boundaries tend to be older. They'll be direct, they'll cut to the chase. And I've noticed myself doing this the older I've gotten. Just not taking anyone's crap. Learning how to do this respectfully or straight-faced with a smile and a please. People take that seriously when you're done with feeling like you can just give, and all you get in the end is just exhaustion for yourself. When all is said and done, this boils down to being a leader of sorts and calling the shots that need to be called for the sake of your own well-being. This is an impression that I have had for some time, and let's see what the book has to say about the matter, because everyone has their own interpretations of these things, and it could be the same, but I could also be totally surprised and poop myself. So let's talk a little bit more about the book. I'm going to share my thoughts on the chapters. We're going to go over some standout quotes, who I recommend this book to, and what books to maybe check out next. Just so you know, there are affiliate links in the description. If you buy anything through those links, like maybe this book, then I get commission, which helps me build this channel and keep making these videos. You can also find this book and many others on my Amazon storefront. But welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam, and I want to make self-growth normal, because people shouldn't have to look this information up. It should just be mainstream knowledge. If you agree, then please make sure to smash that like button. Writing out the chapter names, it felt the way it should with a book like this. I noticed that every chapter name has the word boundaries in it in the first half. The second half, I got a lot more of like an application era out of it, because it's strictly about how to apply these boundaries in all areas of your life, be it family, friends, work, romantic relationships, and basically things worth pooping yourself over. Chapter 1, what the heck are boundaries? When you don't set boundaries, the first thing you notice is a neglect of self-care. That's right, when you see yourself putting the needs of others before your own. Self-care is the root of setting boundaries. Obviously, doing good for others is a good thing, but it's only so good for you, and if it's not done in moderation, it can be damaging, if anything, to your mental state. She also goes over some basic instructions for setting boundaries. Chapter 2, the cost of not having healthy boundaries. The first half of this chapter discusses to a surprising degree just the weight of being a mom in today's world and feeling like there's just so much to keep up with every day. Doing it all, unrealistic expectations, and the other seems to have issues with the concept of cutting people off or avoiding them to keep your own peace. Chapter 3, why don't we have healthy boundaries? See what I'm saying? Like, they all have the word boundaries in them. I think so much of what stops us from setting boundaries is that we're scared of just coming off as mean or confrontational, but the problem with this is that what makes you uncomfortable in the first place that the other person is saying or doing will bubble up in your mind. It can cause avoidance or lashing out, but it's worth considering how you were taught what you know about boundaries and where whatever went wrong went wrong. Chapter 4, the 6 types of boundaries. A little spoiler here, but not really. The 6 types of boundaries are physical, sexual, intellectual, emotional, material, and time. I like how she gave examples of these and examples of how to set them. It really is golden information in this chapter. These are not taught in school, or at least high school or colleges, and I do not understand why that is, especially nowadays with how seriously people take abuse and mental health and just respecting others. Chapter 5. What boundary violations look like. People do not need to like or understand your boundaries to respect them. Here you learn about big and small B boundary violations and how they damage the dynamics of a relationship in the form of micro and macro aggressions. She puts an emphasis in the end on trauma bonding, which I really appreciated. Chapter 6, identify and communicate your boundaries. Here's just one example of setting a boundary that stood out, because it just kind of shows how this is someone who's looking to find peace in their life, and if that means a temporary sacrifice of comfort for themselves and those around them, so be it, really. Time goes on and people want to waste less of it. Like, honestly. Eric decided to proceed with a boundary he set with his father. The next time his dad called while drunk, Eric stated, "It sounds like you've been drinking, I'll talk to you later." And then he promptly hung up the phone without waiting for his father's response. It sounds cold, but would it make that much sense for everyone involved if he went with his instinct and just let the conversation continue? Let's find out. While staying consistent, Eric noticed that calls from his dad while drunk became infrequent. When they occurred, which wasn't often, Eric restated his boundary and simply hung up. Chapter 7. Blurred lines. Make it plain. The author uses not what I would call a best practice, but it almost never hurts, where you use a story to introduce each chapter. Here we learn about making consequences of boundaries clear so others understand them, and when and how to issue ultimatums. Specifically, I like that the author repeatedly reminds the reader that this stuff is not easy to do, but it is better for you and your mental health in the long run. Chapter 8, Trauma and Boundaries. This was a very good chapter about trauma and how to set healthy boundaries with it. Here's one quote that I really liked. Hopefully you resonate with it. If you're close with someone who's experienced a lot of trauma. For people who have experienced trauma, the hardest part of living with it is the vulnerability of sharing the story with other people. We fear that if we are vulnerable, people will think less of us, hurt us again, minimize our trauma, think we're weak, or judge us. Chapter 9, what are you doing to honor your boundaries? Here we learn about being consistent with boundaries, saying stuff like, I told you that I wanted you to call me before coming over, and I don't like having guests here without notice. Just reminding people what you've said and reinforcing it. Chapter 10, family. This chapter began part 2, which is how you do the work of setting boundaries in particular areas of your life. It really leaned in on relationships with parents. And I think that when you have trouble setting boundaries with your parents, it's because many of us for a very long time developed this habit of doing what they say without any kind of pushback. There's a note of acknowledgement in the middle of this chapter that I found strikingly self-aware of the author to include. You may be the first person in your family to set boundaries. Remember that doing something different may elicit an unwelcoming response. Setting boundaries will shift how other people see you. Something I like that she also did in the book was including exercises at the end of each chapter with questions that can help you further become the type of person who sets boundaries. Chapter 11, romantic relationships. There was a lot here about relationship dynamics between sex and parenting and how things water all of it down and just make it a mundane, business-like experience. This surprised me, but it also kind of didn't. Like you could maybe expect, I don't know. Chapter 11 is friendships. What I find in the examples given throughout this book are generally just people choosing to put themselves first, and to say that this is selfish, in my opinion, is ludicrous, even if it's true. If you're not able to keep up with putting yourself first, taking care of other people can only be taken so far. Chapter 13 is work. I think the whole guide to reclaiming yourself thing really does have legs here. It's like she picks from every angle what she can at what someone can do to gain more control over their life. And what's interesting is how much these things revolve specifically around the act of just setting boundaries for yourself. Between romantic relationships and friendship and work and even social media, she really did go full circle trying to touch upon all aspects of daily life. Chapter 14 is social media and technology. Boundaries around this are a chapter that you could easily just write a whole book about. Indistractable by Nir Eyal is a fantastic example of this. Quotes, "Common sense is based on our life experiences and it isn't the same for everyone. A misconception about boundaries is that they always mean saying no. Assuming the worst is often what stops us from even trying. She sets boundaries and when people don't adhere to them, she honors them by leaving the situation. Exhibit the boundaries you wish to see in the world. You become an adult when you set boundaries with your parents. Sure, someone may be aware when they violate someone's boundaries, but most likely they don't know. It isn't okay to feel like your job will be in jeopardy if you don't comply with toxic workplace behavior." Direction 1. I definitely recommend this book for someone who has trouble saying no. It's appropriate and helpful in working on improving this for yourself. And the reason I say that is that there's a stereotype that therapists have a tendency to hyperfixate on the effect one's childhood has on the way they approach relationships and life in general. While the nurture sign does tend to play a very large part of things, the author does much more than address only this. Direction 2. If you like this book, I recommend checking out Hold Me Tight by Sue Johnson and Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Glover Tawwab. There's a link in the description if you want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere and I will see you then.